My name is Audrey. I'm 32 years old. The night my family laughed about my grandmother's life is burned into my memory like a scar that never fades. It was my cousin Elena's engagement dinner, one of those polished, expensive evenings where everyone pretends they've always had money. Crystal glasses clinketed, soft piano music floated through the air, and every conversation sounded like a competition, disguised as small talk. I remember sitting there quiet, watching my aunts compare jewelry, my uncles debate investments, my cousins scrolled through pictures of their luxury vacations, and then somehow the conversation turned to my grandmother. My grandma was an army nurse, I said without thinking too much about it. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just wanted to say something real in a room full of fake. There was a pause, then my aunt gave a small, dismissive smile. Army nurse, really? Medals, novices, nothing special. Another voice joined in, laughing lightly. Sounds like one of those stories people make up to feel better. I felt my chest tighten, but I didn't say anything. One of my cousins leaned back in his chair, swirling his drink. So, she served but ended up poor. That's kind of sad, isn't it? And then someone said it. The line that stayed with me. My grandma was an army nurse. No medals, no records. She lived poor, died the same way. They repeated it like it was a joke, like it was a punchline. Laughter followed. Not loud, not cruel, in an obvious way, but enough. Enough to make it clear what they thought of her, what they thought of me. I stared down at my plate, my hands clenched under the table. They didn't know her. They didn't know the woman who raised me when my parents were too busy chasing their own lives. They didn't know the quiet strength in her voice, the way she never complained even when things were hard. They only saw what she didn't have. No wealth, no recognition, no proof. But I remembered everything. I remembered the small apartment where she lived, always spotless despite its age. I remembered how she used to hum softly while cooking, like the world outside didn't matter. I remembered the old photographs she kept in a worn-out box, pictures she never explained, just smiled at. And I remembered the day she died. There was no crowd, no ceremony, no long line of mourners. At Arlington, it was just me. The wind had been cold that morning, cutting through my coat as I stood there alone. No family members bothered to come. They said they were busy, said it was too far, said it didn't matter, but it mattered to me. I stood there holding back tears, feeling like the entire world had forgotten her. Then something unexpected happened. A man approached me. His presence was quiet but commanding. He wore his uniform like it carried history itself. A 4-star general walked up. I remember blinking, unsure if I was imagining it. He looked at me, really looked at me, and then he did something that caught me completely off guard. He shook my hand. There was respect in his eyes, real respect, the kind I hadn't seen all day. He said, "Fly to Geneva." I didn't understand. I must have looked confused because he leaned in slightly, his voice lowering just enough to feel personal. "Give them your grandmother's name. They'll understand." And then he stepped back, gave me a nod, and walked away like nothing had happened. I stood there, frozen, my heart racing. Geneva. What was in Geneva? Why my grandmother's name? I looked down at the grave again, at the simple marker that didn't say nearly enough about who she was. For a moment, everything felt heavier. Her silence, her past, all the things she never told me. That night, at the engagement dinner, while my family laughed, I finally realized something. They thought they knew the whole story. They thought her life was small. But deep down, I knew they were missing something. And for the first time, I started to wonder just how much. I didn't sleep that night. The words kept echoing in my head like they were trying to unlock something I wasn't ready to face. Fly to Geneva. Give them your grandmother's name. They'll understand. By morning, I had already made the decision. I booked the flight without telling anyone. Not my family, not my friends, no one. If there was even a chance that my grandmother's life was more than what everyone believed, I had to find out. Geneva felt different the moment I landed. Quiet, precise, like a place where secrets could exist in plain sight, and no one would question them. I followed the only clue I had, a name. The address I found after hours of digging led me to a private institution. Nothing flashy, just a clean, modern building with security that felt deliberate, not aggressive, but controlled, like they knew exactly who belonged and who didn't. I walked up to the front desk, my hands slightly trembling despite my effort to stay calm. "Hello," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I was told to come here. I need to give you a name." The receptionist looked at me politely, but without much interest. "And that name is—" I hesitated for just a second. Then I said it, "my grandmother." The change was instant. Her expression didn't just shift, it froze. Not confusion, not curiosity, recognition. She picked up the phone without another word, speaking quietly in a language I didn't understand. Within seconds, two men appeared from a hallway behind her. "Please come with us," one of them said. No explanation, no questions, just certainty. My heart pounded as I followed them through a series of secured doors, each one clicking shut behind me. The deeper we went, the more unreal it felt, like I had stepped into a version of my grandmother's life she had hidden completely. Finally, we entered a private office. An older man stood by the window, his back turned to me. The moment he heard the door close, he turned around slowly, and the second he saw me, his expression sought me to have her eyes. He said quietly. I couldn't speak. He gestured for me to sit, but I stayed standing. "I don't understand what's happening," I admitted. "I was told to come here. I was told you'd understand her name." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Yes," he said. "We do." He walked over to a secure drawer, opened it, and pulled out a file. Thick, aged, handled many times over the years. "Your grandmother," he continued, "was not just an army nurse." My breath caught. She was one of the most important field operatives we ever had. The room felt smaller. She worked in places where records were never meant to exist. War zones that were politically invisible. Situations where saving lives required more than medicine. I shook my head slightly, trying to process it. "But there's nothing. No medals. No history." "That was intentional," he interrupted gently. "Her work could never be public. Recognition would have put lives at risk even years later. Everything my family had mocked, everything they thought was nothing, was suddenly something else entirely. Something bigger. She chose to live quietly after she retired," he added. "We offered her wealth, protection, a different life, and she refused." I asked softly. He smiled faintly. "She said she had already done enough." My throat tightened. He slid the file across the desk toward me. "And now," he said, "we honor her the way she allowed us to." Inside the file were documents, photographs, sealed records, and one final page, a trust. I stared at the number, reading it twice just to be sure I wasn't imagining it. $12 million. My hands went cold. "She left this in our care," he explained, "with strict instructions. It was never about money for her, but she wanted you to have a choice, a future without limits." Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. All those years, all that silence, it wasn't emptiness, it was sacrifice. Days later, I sat across from my family again. Same kind of table, same polished setting, same people who once laughed like my grandmother's life meant nothing. But this time, I wasn't quiet. They noticed the difference immediately. "What's going on with you?" one of them asked, half joking, half curious. I looked around the table slowly, meeting each of their eyes. "My grandma was an army nurse," I said. A few of them smirked, already expecting the same story. I didn't stop. No medals, no records. Silence started creeping in. "She lived poor, died the same way." Now they were listening. At Arlington, it was just me. Then a 4-star general walked up. He shook my hand. No one moved. "Fly to Geneva," he said. "Give them your grandmother's name, they'll understand." The room had gone completely still. I leaned forward slightly, my voice calm but unshakable. They understood. I let that sit for a moment. Then I added, "And so will you." No laughter this time, no smirks, just silence, heavy and uncomfortable. Because now they finally realized something they should have known all along. Value isn't always visible. And the people you underestimate the most sometimes carry the greatest stories.